call this meeting of the City of Ames Planning and Zoning Commission to order. The Planning and Zoning Commission is an independent advisory body of the City of Ames City Council. The Planning and Zoning Commission members are volunteers of the community and not part of the city administration. The Planning and Zoning Commission is supported by staff from the city's planning division. The commission is responsible for recommendations on matters involving subdivisions, annexations, master plans, and major site development plans, amendments to the zoning ordinance, and comprehensive plan amendments. We make our recommendations based on city codes, facts presented, and input from the public. As an advisory commission, we welcome all comments regarding the proposed item. Please direct your input to the commission. If the proceedings become lengthy, we may ask that comments be focused on new information not previously presented. You may speak only once on an agenda item. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker information card and present it to the recording secretary. We ask that you come to the microphone to speak so that all comments may be recorded. The order of the proceedings for each item on the agenda will be as follows. City staff will present the staff report regarding the agenda item. Commission members will have an opportunity to ask questions of city staff. The applicant will be invited to make a statement regarding the request. Commission members will have an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant. Members of the audience will be invited to come forward to offer comments and questions. Once public comment is closed, city staff and the applicant will have an opportunity for concluding remarks. The commission will discuss the application based on all presentations and any comments given and come to a recommendation for city council. The discussion may include further questions of city staff and the applicant for clarification. And with that, we'll move to the first item on the agenda, which is introduction of the commission members.
Julie Winter.
Mike Sullivan.
Matthew Voss.
Jim Blickensdorf.
Now we'll move to item 3 on the agenda, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move. Second.
All right, we have moved second. All in favor of approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The agenda is approved. Next, we'll move to approval of the minutes from December 3rd, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor of approving the minutes of December 3rd, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And now we'll open the meeting for public forum. If there's anyone from the audience that wishes to speak on an agenda, on an item not on the agenda, this is the time to do that. We ask that all comments related to agenda items, they'll be held until that time. So would anyone like to speak for public forum? Seeing none, we'll close the public forum and we'll move on to agenda item 6, rezone from residential low density zone RL to suburban residential low density zone FSRL with a planned unit development PUD overlay and major site development plan and a preliminary plat for the property located at the intersection of Harrison Road and Welbeck Drive.
Good evening. Sorry, I've got a split screen this evening. Okay. So this is a request for a preliminary plat or rezoning and a major site plan for this parcel of land you see on the screen, which is actually right of way that was vacated by the city this summer. And it has been identified by city council as an opportunity for ownership housing, infill ownership housing. So we've entered into an agreement with Keystone Equity Group, a developer, to purchase the property from the city after receiving entitlements. So approval of the preliminary plat, rezoning, and site development plan. And so the items before you are really the first step in that entitlement process. There will be a final plat as well that won't become before you, but will go to city council. And so what they are proposing is a 12 unit, sorry, this screen's throwing me off. 12 unit single family attached development on the site. So what that means is they're attached homes, but they're on individual lots. So these are ownership housing that will be part of a development agreement that's required. But they're configured as townhomes. So you can see there's there's bi-attached units. So there's 6 bi-attached units. And then along the west side of the property, adjacent to the railroad, is 2 sets of 3 unit attached homes. And so these all have attached garages. Again, they're on individual lots. And then Harrison Court is a private street that will serve this development. And it was configured in this T shape to both, accommodate how the site widens towards the west, but for fire turnaround as well. So you can see that the homes are kind of clustered towards the middle to rear of the site. Storm water is provided on the north and south of the site, as well as the west side of the site. And then in the front of the site, closest to Welbeck Drive, is left as open space. So this rezoning request includes a planned unit development overlay, which means that certain deviations are allowed from zoning. So that in this case means lot sizes are reduced from zoning requirements. So that allows the kind of the clustering that you see with this development, as well as interior setbacks. So what I mean by an interior setback would be, if you can see where my cursor is, between lots 7 and 8, this side setback is 7.5 feet versus 8 feet. And so it's not an exterior setback. Those are still required to be met. They're all meeting or exceeding a 20-foot setback from the perimeter of the development. So from the west, north, east, and south sides, there's a 20-foot setback. So that's not being deviated from. And then the density is also something that's not allowed to be deviated from. So while they're clustered on the site on smaller lots, the overall density of the zone is still met. Part of the reasoning behind allowing deviations from the zoning code is to get more unique designs or types of housing that we might not see. So ownership, single family attached homes is a unique product type for Ames. But in order to be allowed to have these deviations, there's certain considerations and compatibility standards that have to be met. So you can see most of the compatibility standards are related to the design of the homes. So the main entrances have to be defined. We have a covered porch. This is an example of the bi-attached unit. The porches are set back no more than 12 feet from the front of the garage, which means the garage isn't really defining the front facade. But I think what's important with these units is the height. They're 2 stories, so that matches adjacent single family detached homes. They're sloped roofs. They're not flat roofs, so the design is compatible. And the bi-attached homes that will have the most interface with the adjacent single family detached homes are 50 feet wide in total, the buildings. So they're not larger than you might think of for a home with an attached garage. So that massing, that scale is in line with what you'd see, even though they are attached units from a single family detached unit. So these standards for compatibility, I'll also point out, are similar to our principles for infill development in Ames Plan 2040, our comprehensive plan. So while this is considered an established neighborhood in our comprehensive plan, we also have goals and policies to identify infill sites and site them appropriately. Those policies also reflect ensuring the scale, the massing, the design of the homes is compatible with adjacent development. And I'll just show you the designs for the 3-unit attached homes as well. So again, we have single car garages, porches covered by a stoop with these units as well. The garages protrude about 3 or 4 feet in front of the front doors on these units. So again, you can see the front door, and this is the rear. So again, these are the 3-unit attached homes are located on the west side of the property that will interface with the railroad. And I'll also note, while these are located adjacent to single-family detached homes within the surrounding area, there are also some small lot detached single-family homes and bi-attached homes. So it is reflective of some of the development patterns we see in the larger area. So with that, of your alternatives this evening, we are recommending approval of the rezoning preliminary plat and major site development plan with a condition. We are working to still address some street tree spacing with the engineer on the project, as well as the public sidewalk. There's a gap in the public sidewalk right now that will be filled with this project, and we're working on transitioning it from a 4-foot sidewalk to a 5-foot sidewalk and accommodating appropriate pedestrian ramps with that transition. So before City Council, will have those items worked through. I'm happy to take any questions. I'll take us back to the main layout plan here too.
So in some of the emails we got from residents beforehand, they talked about current use of the site for children and open space and things. I know there are some open space requirements for the PUD. Can you talk a little bit about how those are met and what that open space will look like on this site?
So infill development is accepted from the open space requirements of a PUD. That was a recent text amendment since the last PUD that came before you or with that one. However, there is a significant amount of open space on the site just because of how the units are clustered together in the front of the site. And as well as overall, I think it's around 40% isn't on a private lot. That does include the road though. There isn't a standard open space requirement for this. And I will note that, typically of a development that does have an open space set aside, that's for use of the residents of the development, not necessarily like a public park, which is, I think, one of the current uses or the concerns is how the neighborhood more broadly is using the space.
Yeah, that was going to be a question of mine. I guess, could you speak a little bit to, and we'll probably have to zoom out on a map, I guess, to see, but like the proximity of other park space to this part of the neighborhood?
So I want to be, I think I'm going to interject.
I know that's not.
Yeah, I'm just going to interject. So the city council has determined that it will not be a public park. So whether it,
I understand.
yeah, so the closest park is down on Bloomington. Lloyd Kurtz is the closest park to this area. As development grows to the north, which is right now, if you don't move the map, there'll be some other park space created further north away, not necessarily walking distance from this site, but other parks would come into development as other growth happens to the north.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, highlight one of the concerns, and there is park space currently that's in somewhat close proximity to this part of that neighborhood, I believe.
Right.
So just wanted to point that out, I guess.
I have it highlighted.
Yeah. So so before this summer, when we did not exempt sites under 2 acres from common open space, 10% was the standard. So on a 1.8 acre, it would have been 0.18 acres. So about 10 to 12,000 square feet of area would have been the minimum requirement. And in this case, it would have met that just because of, as Amelia said, because of the way the houses are clustered, there is open area to meet that standard if it did apply.
Great, thank you.
Under this plan, the open space, would that be under ownership of the developer, or would that stay with the city? Or
It would be a homeowners association managing both the open space and the street maintenance, because for the private street.
Okay.
Question about street parking. Can you
Yes.
go back to maybe C300? That might be the best sheet to look at.
Sure.
The first sheet in the
Yep.
set.
How's this?
Maybe not as good. I don't know.
Okay.
You're indicating, that's pretty good. You're showing three shared parking spaces,
Yes.
right, in the streets. What's the plan for the curbs? Are those all no parking zones then? Are those going to be painted?
They're
What's-
rolled curbs. But yes, it's not, there's no on-street parking.
Okay, so I'm curious about how this meets 1817 with the prohibition against parking within 20 feet of a painted curb. Since the driveways are shorter and if there's no parking available on what appears to be most development, how is that managed?
What are you referencing? 1817?
1817 of it's the parking supplement says that
Of the municipal code?
municipal code. Yeah.
Okay.
No person shall stop, stand, or park a vehicle in any of the following places. Paragraph 5 is within 20 feet or such lesser distance indicated by a painted curb, sign, or a crosswalk. So, how would guest parking be accommodated if that's a no parking area?
It's designated as 3 parking spaces on a private street. That code wouldn't apply to a private street in the first place. That's for public streets. So this is going to be a private street, and they're intentionally we're building 3 parking bays with the way the street is designed. So
So
I
that's
don't
gonna be-
think it conflicts because of the way we do parking.
Okay, so it's a private street, and it won't be plowed by the city of Ames or
Will not.
anything like that.
If it was a public street, it'd have to be larger and meet
Doesn't meet the-
and meet our standard cul-de-sac requirements for turnaround of a so
So that answers my next question, which is what about fire service and fire turnaround?
it meets that. So it does meet. So fire code allows for what we call the hammerhead turnaround. So it does meet at the dead end length of the street. It does have a turnaround that meets fire code, even though on a public street you would see it as a cul-de-sac. We don't do hammerheads on public streets. That's a private street or a multifamily kind of approach.
Yeah, thank you.
So yes, it does meet all fire code requirements in terms of minimum fire lane widths and turnarounds at the end of a dead end, and then the fire hydrant placement is all there to meet requirements as well.
I only have one other question, if you'll indulge me here. Some months ago, we heard an amendment, I think, to Chapter 18 about parking a vehicle in a driveway for an extended period of time. And I didn't follow that all the way through City Council, but it seems like what's indicated in the packet is that some people would have to park a vehicle in a driveway, especially in the 3-bedroom units. How, if in any way, does that conflict with what was eventually passed by City Council in terms of enforcement of a standing vehicle?
Trying to recall exactly what you're referencing. So we allow you to park in your driveway. We allow it to count as one of your required spaces if necessary as well. The rule is typically storage of vehicles is what is prohibited. So the parking of a vehicle is less than 72 hours. Storage of vehicles has limitations on a property. I'm trying to recall.
Yeah, this is
A
about
text amendment this
is
fall?
about boats and trailers was the
Oh,
context.
the boats and trailers issue.
And we talked about how some people leave town for extended periods of time and leave their vehicle in the driveway, that they might unintentionally be in violation. In this particular case, it's by design that they park in the driveway for extended period of time.
I mean, that happens all over town. I think it's I'm
So-
trying to remember that amendment. I don't think it's exactly what we're saying is the situation here. So I'll look that one back up. We can come back to that. But it's also, yeah, I don't think that's how it gets applied in terms of parking enforcement when it's a vehicle for your own home. So I'll look that up and we can come back to that if there's other questions.
I just want to note on the question about the driveway length. So the majority of the units have 20 feet in between the garage face and the sidewalk or curb. which allows a car to be parked. That's our standard. Some on the curves of the road have just a portion of their driveway. I'm pointing to lot 3 because this was the one that has kind of the shortest section down to about 17 and a half feet for half its driveway. But that would still allow one car to park, and it has a 2-car garage. So stacked parking is allowed for single and 2-family dwellings. It counts towards the required 2 spaces that they have to have, and there is sufficient per our code with the garages, parking on site with the garages and the provided driveway length.
I'm kind of wondering what's the difference between the private street and the public street that enables all of the different code variations here.
So we allow private streets for these smaller types of developments when there's not, a real large traffic volume. I think that's the main difference. So in our subdivision code, private streets are allowed for certain.
I think what you're asking is, does the private street enable a different lot pattern than the public street?
Different parking, different width.
Yeah, it'd be different in multiple ways. So when we do a public right of way, we reserve 55 feet of width for a street, a planter strip, and a parking and a sidewalk. And you build a 26-foot wide street, which allows parking on either side of a local street. And then at the end of a dead end street, you must build a cul-de-sac rather than a hammerhead turnaround. So if we had a 55-foot width of right of way in here, this particular footprint of a house wouldn't fit. I'm not saying other footprints of houses would not fit, but for sure these houses would not fit if we had that wider street.
And so the street will be maintained by the homeowners?
Correct.
What's the precedent for private streets versus public generally for recent developments, last 5 years? Or, I mean, what are we talking about as far as precedent?
We've approved 2 this year. So you approved one off of 4th Street for 16 units, and then you ultimately the North Dakota project was approved. You most commonly see it with attached product, typically a townhome type of project rather than a single family dwelling. Because if you get 2 larger lots with single family dwellings that aren't attached, it's just a different configuration. So they're mostly, I'm trying to think through, we probably have I can think of one single family detached project that did a private street out in North Ames, but mostly it's related to attached product.
I
So
have
who would
answer on the
have the HOA?
So HOA will be responsible for generating.
Right, but who would run the HOA?
They would elect a board.
So it would be the property owners.
The property owners, yeah. So typically when a developer starts a project, they run the HOA until all lots are sold, and then they turn over, once the project is complete and all the improvements are done, they turn that HOA over to the homeowners, and then the homeowners elect a board, and the board is responsible for management of not just the road, but the common property as well.
To the question about the RV and outdoor storage of vehicles. So what that amendment did was it's actually now permitted to have a vehicle in a residential zone parked for over 72 hours or stored on an approved driveway. But that doesn't apply to junk vehicles. So operable vehicles only.
Another question I had about the parking again, and I apologize if this is in the packet and I missed it, but for the 3 street parking spots up there towards the entrance to the development, what parking requirements apply to those 3 spots? Is it the same as public parking and city right away, or is it different because it's on a private development?
I'm not sure I understand your question. It's just guest parking, so it's open to.
It'll be managed.
Someone can park their car there.
It's up to the HOA to manage it.
Okay, it's under the HOA. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
It's not subject to public street parking standards.
Thank you.
So, like, for example, they could require someone to have a permit to use it. They could post 24-hour
many hours,
parking
yeah.
if they wanted to, and follow whatever rules are related to not to towing. So there's rules about management of spaces if you were to have someone towed, but it's up to the HOA to decide how to manage that if they want to manage it.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
I just have one other question. Who is the applicant in this case? Is it the city or is it KEG?
It is KG.
They haven't taken title of the property.
No, we have a memorandum of understanding with them, which allows them to apply.
So we're the owner, but we're transferring it to the developer if they complete the terms of the purchase agreement. And they would take title before any actual development happens on the site.
Any other questions for city staff at this moment? Okay. Well, in that case, we would invite the applicant to come up and make a statement on this agenda item if they wish to do so.
Good evening, Commission. Jason Ledden with Snyder & Associates here representing the applicant Keystone Equity Group, and I have JD here with me as well. I think Amelia and Kelly did a great job kind of explaining what we're trying to do here, so I'd be happy to answer any questions. I don't have anything additional to add than what they've stated already. Thank you.
All right. Well, at this time, then we'd have a chance for the members of the audience to come up for public comment. If you'd like to come up and speak on this agenda item, please step up and say your name and maybe your address, and feel free to say your piece. So thank you.
My name is Beth Faith, and I live on Valentine Drive with my husband, 4102. So we back up to this area along with my neighbors here, the Fenema. And like many people in that area, we purchased our lot and built on that, our homes on that lot, thinking that this was always going to remain empty. We consider it our sand lot. Where we pass through every day. We walk down to Ada Hayden. There's kids that practice softball, baseball. There was a pickup football game today. Families play with their dogs, and they fly kites. It's a well-used space, and we love it. And as a nurse, green space is important to be built into communities and business areas for mental health and for exercise. And we really dislike the fact that there's going to be so many homes. If it was going to be a residential home of one, it would be great. I mean, compared to this, we'd love to leave it as an open space. We have a half-acre lot. I cannot believe they are going to put that many homes on almost 2 acres. And if they do, I hope the people that back up to the railroad track there, they're going to have a terrible time selling those lots. And I hope that they put trees or something to help protect them from the railroad track, because that's almost setting on top of it compared to our houses. Our house is set farther back. And I know too, the kids from Bloomington, that area, they've asked us, because we made a path across the railroad. I mean, that we can walk across freely. Kids come over all the time to fish in the pond that's on Stang. I think it's a crime. We love the green space. That's why we moved there. We'd like to keep it a green space, and we hope you vote no.
Yeah, if you,
Yeah, just come to the counter and fill out if you can fill out a slip when you're done and give it to the recording clerk, that'd be great.
So we've lived there 10 years.
yeah,
State your
could you
name
say your
and
name?
Ron Fenema, and I'm best neighbor. I live on 4106 Ballantyne. And one of the big things was when we moved to that house is I asked our builder if they could build anything back on this green space. And he said, no, there wasn't enough room to build anything back there. And so that was a big thing why we built there. And for now, we're having this project come out on us. I don't think that's really fair to the people that we were told that it was not big enough to build anything there. And now all of a sudden there is. There's not much green space left here in Ames other than parks. There's going to be lots of building up north and there's building up south. They can go out there and build. That's just our opinion, but it's not very fair to tell somebody that's not going to be, they can't build there and all of a sudden now they can build there. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm his wife. So I'm Donna Fenema, and I live at 4106 Ballantyne. I'll fill out my slip. My concern is the addition to the traffic that we're going to have on Hyde. We already have an issue with that opening up all the way to Gilbert High School and the traffic that's already on there. And I know that they plan on adding more up as we expand north. This is just going to add to it. And so I'm just questioning how we're going to cope with all that. And I know there's a lot of concern in that neighborhood of people that I've talked to in that neighborhood. And so that was just something that I wanted to add, is that I know they're very worried about the traffic and how that's going to impact their neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the audience that wish to speak on this agenda item? Okay, hearing none, we will close the public comment and we'll move to, if there's city staff or the applicant would like to offer any concluding remarks, this is their time to do so. None from the applicant? Okay.
If you have specific questions based on public comment, I'm happy to answer those.
Does anyone from the commission have additional comments for city staff?
I just have one question. So the density, can you talk about the density, and can you talk about the density of the proposed development in relation to the surrounding homes and how that compares? It seems like that's the question isn't whether or not it can or should be developed, but whether it's too much development.
So the surrounding homes were developed in the early 2000s. The ones adjacent to the site are on very large lots for the subdivision as a whole. They were part of developed I can speak to the current density requirement for the site under the zoning district.
Can we go to the zoning map?
Yeah.
That'd be helpful.
Sorry, with the screen so far away, I'm having trouble reading it. There we go. So the adjacent homes are zoned RL, so residential low density. That has a maximum density of 7.26 units per acre. If you take the gross density of the site, 12 units on 1.81 acres, we're under 7.26. It's 6.6. But I think what you're saying is the adjacent homes are on pretty large lots.
And development standards have changed in the city since that development.
And so about 200 feet then down the road, you do have actually a medium density zone that would allow higher densities than are proposed for this site.
So like where West Wind is, that's an example of a private street project where you have very small lot detached homes principally. I don't remember, there might be some attached in that one. I think that's in that 6 to 7 unit range on a gross site acreage basis. And then across Hyde is where you have conventional townhomes, which would be a little bit higher density than 7 units, probably closer to 10. So I would say, what we would say, again, when you do townhome product, that's probably when you're getting into this 7 to 10 unit density range. You're just not going to see that with detached product very often. It's almost impossible with detached product.
I guess I have I don't know if it's a question or just a general comment, but as you zoomed out on that map, I actually used to live at the apartment that's right off of Tiverton, so it's a little bit further south. It's not really important where it is on there, but basically it's an adjacent lot to that railroad. And I did hear the comment that someone mentioned tonight, which was related to the proximity of the units to the railroad track. You know, I do see that there are other housing units that have probably a comparable setback in the city. You see it all in Northwestern as well. So it's not that it hasn't been done, but especially if you're talking that these are owner occupied units, we obviously know that the square footage is going to be less for those units just because of that proximity to railroad tracks. But I don't think we're necessarily being asked to judge the site layout as such, but I don't know, from a planning perspective, it seems like bad planning to have so many units so close to the railroad tracks. I know that if we would put that setback further just to help with that would decrease the number of units that would be available for that development. So it's a trade-off, but that's just a general comment. I guess I don't know if staff has any comments about why that was done. I think I know why it was done, but I guess just a general, maybe somewhat bad planning, but this is the missing middle housing. So this is what we're looking for here.
I think all I can add is that, you don't see trees in that area or a buffer as was suggested because it is a stormwater basin behind the homes. So part of the separation, the homes don't actually touch the railroad, but there's it's part of the common open space with the stormwater area. And they are set back about 28 feet from the railroad. So they exceed the required 20
From the
foot
right of
setback.
way of the railroad,
Yes.
not the tracks.
Yes, from the right of way of this, from the unit to the rear property line is 28 feet.
I think that those units will be closer to the railroad track than my apartment building on Tiverton. And I can tell you that I woke up at 5:30 to 6 a.m. every morning that train whistle blew. It was not even a question of getting used to it. So, but obviously that's not under direct consideration for this, just a thought that if the site plan were to change, that's definitely one thing that would be nice on the wish list.
I think in terms of why this was ultimately the layout was trying to ensure we met that minimum 20-foot setback on the north and south property lines. So fitting the house that was proposed by the developer into that area, it just got had to elongate the site. The developer would prefer to build West Street, not Moore Street. That's I think why we ended up where we did here. There's somewhat different variations before we got to here tonight, but I think that driving force of the site plan where there's 20-foot requirements on the north and south property lines. So to really fit any those other 6 units on the other side of the dead end on the site, they would had to have been smaller units as well. And the developer was trying to do 2 different products. So to move the 6 units on the back property line further east, you would have to do different product on the other side of the dead end. So maybe there wouldn't be a loss in density, but it definitely would be smaller units to be able to fit within the allowable envelope of the PUD. So as you said, there's trade-offs on unit size versus space. And that's, I think, to me, that's what I observed as the developer worked through iterations to get to this. I don't think anybody's ideal situation is to get as close as possible to a railroad, but it is a choice with the homeowner buying the product of what they're comfortable with.
Can I ask?
If there was an interest of some kind of tree buffer, we'd have to look at what species could work with the stormwater conveyance area. But right now, we didn't reckon there wasn't a mandatory buffer requirement for the railroad anywhere in the city, so we didn't, as staff, suggest that they had to do that.
How do these units in size relate to the ones nearby, even the 2 units? I've noticed there are 2 units fairly close, townhomes, but they're fairly large. In fact, 3-car garages, etc. They're pretty big.
I haven't looked at house sizes in the area, so I don't think I could answer that.
I can tell you the square footage of the units, if that would be helpful. 1 second. They do have basements, unfinished basements as well. Just give me a minute, we can come back to it.
With respect to the compatibility standards, especially for the sort of eastern units 1 and 2, was there any consideration for the fact that those units, the backyards, are sort of facing towards Welbeck Drive? I know it's a ways away, or at least a little ways off of the road, but as far as compatibility with lot frontage and facing the main public access.
So I think the orientation of those lots, again, has to do with meeting a 20-foot perimeter setback from the north. So that's, a trade-off with how they're oriented. I'm just trying to pull up the landscape plan here.
Matt, can you say that again? So your question is, did we have concerns about the orientation of that 1 unit at a 45-degree angle in relation to Welbeck?
Yeah, specifically with regards to compatibility. I mean, obviously that's different orientation than any of the other properties in the area.
I would say for 2 reasons. No, it's about 120 feet away from the street. And then 2, if you're on a corner lot, you see a side of a house from a street in that circumstance too. So if you viewed it as a corner lot, it's really no different.
And they are proposing, as you can see, about 5 street trees in between, 3 street trees and 3 other trees in between those units and Welbeck.
Any other questions for city staff? Okay.
I guess the only question is, this is a major site plan approval. What are the next steps? Just so that everybody here understands.
So in this case, you're recommending body, so you'll make a recommendation about the rezone, which includes the site plan for the houses and then the plat that creates the lots. That will go to city council, I believe, on the 27th of January, where there'll be a hearing for actual approval of the project. Because we are the seller, we have We have terms in terms of what the project has to do to be able to complete that sale. We expect the development agreement, which will include things that are not typically in zoning, like the ownership requirement as a covenant, and some other things about energy efficiency for the home design that council wants. That will be likely on the last meeting of February, assuming then that all of the requirements have been completed. That would be the night where council is approving a development agreement and enabling that final transfer of the property. So that's the tentative schedule right now. And I think the developer would intend in April to start work, assuming that winter has moved on.
Coming back to the sort of the open space discussion from earlier, is there any, or would there be any precedent for the city maintaining an easement or some requirement to allow non-resident use of the open space, even if it's under the homeowner association?
We can't think of a precedent where it's not in public control. So like the parks at Somerset are private. I don't believe we have as the city any requirement that Somerset has to let the general public use those private parks. I don't think that exists. So I can't, if it doesn't exist in Somerset, I don't know where it would exist in the city. And in this case, I think our Parks and Rec, when we talked through when City Council chose to move forward with this about a year and a half ago, we looked at a lot of different concept layouts. That was part of the discussion in the report about the history with the neighborhoods participation. If this was the open space proposal, I know staff would not support making that public because there's really not public utility to it. It would have to be designed fundamentally different for Parks and Rec to think that there was public use of that space that would be justified in terms of us having responsibility for it. It would have to be quite a bit different in layout and size. So council could, of course, require that or expect that or do that, but it wouldn't fit any model that I'm aware of in the city.
Any other questions at this time? All right. Open up for discussion, commissioners. Or if someone's ready to make a motion, you can do that as well.
I mean, I guess I'll just say from my perspective, I'm not a huge fan of this site design and layout. I'm also not really sure I see a great reason from under the commission's purview to recommend against the section.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I wish the project could go with just 6 units, but I think that has some major, it's not going to cash flow. The project just won't work with just that. And I also recognize that those other 6 units on the parcel are going to allow affordable housing options in the community. They are close to the railroad tracks, but again, folks live on Northwestern and also buy property there as owner occupied. I do know that we have a lot of need for affordable housing, and these are going to be owner occupied housing units in North Ames, which is also people want housing in this area. I do recognize that everybody has they like the open space. It's unfortunate. I wish it was a city park, but at the same time, this is a great opportunity for the city to develop some more housing. So I think I'm in favor of it.
I just said, I think it's bad design, but the trade-off is affordable housing. And I think it's going to be a difficult place to live. But the question here is whether or not it meets chapter 23, not the design. And I don't see any reason or any way that it does not meet the requirements of the subdivision code.
Yeah, I would say just I echo the comments of everyone else here. I think this is approvable. I think this is. I mean, I personally probably wouldn't choose to live here, but that I'm sure there will be people that buy these and will be quite happy living here. And the requirement or the ask in front of us is whether this meets applicable requirements, and I think the answer is it does. So.
That, I mean, now if we're entertaining a motion here, I'll go ahead and move to recommend alternative 1. The Planning and Zoning Commission may recommend that the City Council approve the rezoning to suburban residential low density FSRL for Harrison Point, a proposed development located on city surplus land west of the intersection of Harrison Road and Welbeck Drive, with A planned unit development PUD with major site development plan, and B, preliminary plat, with the stipulation that prior to City Council consideration of the project, the plans for addressing street tree spacing, the public sidewalk with transition, and other staff comments regarding line work and general plan notes are addressed.
I'll second that.
Point of order, we just need a majority of those present for this vote. We have a quorum, so just majority of the present. So we need three.
Majority of who's here is what will carry the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second for alternative 1. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. All right. Thank you. We will move on to agenda item 7. If I can find my agenda. Commission comments. Do you have any commission comments?
Do we expect to have a meeting next time?
Was that land sold? I know I'm probably not supposed to ask another question, but what did the city decide to sell it just because for financial reasons?
We're selling it for $0
For $0
to build
that green space.
to build affordable housing. That was council's decision. That was their incentive to allow for the housing to be built.
So our house is on the other
So
side.
we're in the
don't
middle of
matter.
it. So we're in the middle of a meeting right now. We're on another discussion item. Yes, we are. Yeah, we believe we will have at least one item at the next meeting for a plat.
Any staff comments?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned back in December, City Council is looking at development incentives for a number of projects across the city, from 5 major projects essentially. So on December 16th, they did take action to support various means of incenting projects over the next 3 years. So with that, that's going to lead to likelihood ideally a flurry of some rezoning development agreements and plats here in February and March for probably at least 4 projects. So we might be very busy in the springtime with a bunch of different development project requests because of those incentives. Council is really focused on what could be done in the next 3 years, rather than worrying about like what's phase 5 of a project need for an incentive. And so our next step is council gave direction for us to reach back out to those groups and get a little more of a firm commitment and definition around what they are saying they would deliver in the next 3 years in relation to what council said that they would support in terms of deployment of infrastructure and some other incentives. So that was a pretty significant policy decision by the council. We've never had a precedent of that in the city of Ames to do anything like what that is. So in theory, that supports overall development of 1,000 units between the projects. Our internal estimate is that it could lead to probably 300 units over the next 3 years, just being more more understanding of what the limits of construction are in terms of the volume of housing. So to give you context, we've been at a very low housing production for the last 3 years. We've averaged 65 new single family homes for the last 3 years. Previously, we've been at least 80, 90 to 100. It's been going down for 10 years. We also haven't built very many apartments in the last 4 years either. So we're at hopefully a trough in terms of housing production. You approved Discovery Place this summer, where some more apartments are going to be built, and the development incentives do have some apartment sites, but they're not really like phase one elements of those projects. So you're going to see some significantly large projects, a lot to be determined for some of these big projects. We haven't really seen this for a couple of years in terms of the commission with plats and rezoning issues. So yeah, look, that won't be on the next meeting, but I would say start to think maybe the end of February, probably in March, you'll start seeing a number of rezoning requests along with those plats. So we had one of the reasons the rezoning is a number of them had development agreements already, and they're being altered or undone to permit different expectations. So that's a rezoning process to do that. So that's probably our biggest update in terms of council action that's going to have come back to you guys, and you're going to see a lot of stuff there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.